What a way to start the Monday, Tyler.
Oh, you know what? It may be even better to start it that way. And I just made my own little flow there myself. So, let's get all of them out of the way right at 10 o'clock on Monday, and then we'll be good to go the rest of the week.
Well, the good thing about that is on the radio, no one saw that.
It's true. That's true.
Hello.
That as well never have happened.
And we could say that, right?
Right.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ronnie Dull alongside Tyler Keith, and this is the Oakland County Megacast. And poof, just like that, the weekend is over.
Once again, Ronnie. Once again, it just got, just for that, everybody, just because this weekend went by so quickly, here's what I'm going to do. Here's what we're going to do for you. Next weekend, everybody take an extra day. Everybody just take an extra day.
Oh, isn't that nice of you?
Look, we do our part. We do what we can, Ronnie.
I forgot. It's already almost Labor Day. We are so close to the summer being over.
I know. It's awful, isn't it?
We've had an amazing summer weather-wise.
Yes.
And we deserve it. So I will say the only good thing about summer coming to the end is hopefully it means that the pandemic is going to be coming to an end.
Every month forward we go, we maybe get 1 month closer to the end of the pandemic, and that's why I was very careful to say maybe. No guarantees. We don't know. We'll find out, hopefully.
Yeah,
maybe.
So we'll see. I don't know. This might just be. I always get frogs in my throat like before the show because I think I don't talk enough before I get in here. But let's hope that this comes to an end. But somehow or another, I have a feeling we are going to be living with COVID-19 for a long time.
Oh yeah. Good stuff.
I will say I'm really surprised that by now the supply chain hasn't gotten better as far as supplies. You still can't find Lysol. While toilet paper is a little bit easier, hand sanitizer is easier, Lysol, Clorox wipes, still elusive, and paper towels.
Yeah, paper towels have been tough to find.
You would think they would have gotten the supply chain worked out by now, but
maybe. Well, that's why we're radio people and they're supply chain people, Ronnie.
Okay, well, we want to go ahead and, for those tuning in for the very first time, if you're not familiar with the Oakland County Megacast, this started out of the pandemic and the crisis that we are still in the midst of. I believe back when you guys started this, late March, you never anticipated that it would still be going on. However, it is. And so Monday through Friday, from 10 a.m. until 12 noon, we work to bring you direct information from newsmakers in and around Michigan, as well as Oakland County, and bring you up to date as we continue to try to navigate this crisis, because it is touching every facet and every area of our lives, and it is continuing each and every day. The news changes each and every day, and our goal is to try to keep you updated. And one of the things that we like to do is start off the Oakland County Megacast with a quick look at some of the headlines, and you can follow along with us, or you can check them out anytime on Civic Center TV.com. One of the big things people are going to be watching, U of M is beginning in-person classes. They resumed today at the University of Michigan. Of course, though, a lot of new safety precautions are going to be taken. Any person entering campus buildings will be required to do a self-check for COVID-19 symptoms and answer a brief set of questions through an app. Masks have to be worn at all times, and for students who do test positive or have to be quarantined, the university has set aside rooms to keep them isolated from others on the campus. And I think we've seen what happened at Central Michigan University. People are trying to keep a close eye on U of M to see if they can contain the virus on campus. And of course, Washtenaw County has mandated that outdoor settings have to now be 25 people or less. So your school, MSU, deciding to go remote, at least to start things off.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to see. I mean, you kind of see either schools have decided, colleges have, and universities have decided to either continue on as normal with an in-person and virtual hybrid method going, where they split the classes up. Some are at home, some are in the class, social distancing. That is my phone going off, and I'll make sure to mute that going forward. And then other universities which are instead going for all virtual. So those that went all virtual did it out of an abundance of caution after some outbreaks at places like Central Michigan and like North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and others are waiting it out, seeing if their precautions that they're taking are going to be enough to prevent outbreaks on their campus, or if they can contain outbreaks when they do happen and prevent community spread. We'll see over time, but Michigan taking the risk.
Also on Civic Center TV.com, Brooksy Way is going virtual. The 13th running of the McLaren Brooksy Way is just around the corner. This year, though, it's going to come with a bit of a twist. This year's version of the race, which does include a half marathon, the 10K, the 5K, and the Little Brooksy Fun Run, is going to be virtual. So runners and walkers may complete their chosen race anytime and anywhere within 2 weeks of September 27th. That's when the race was to begin at the Meadowbrook Amphitheater. Race participants will receive finisher medals, which is so important. The runner bibs and race shirts, they're going to be available race week, or they will be mailed after the race. This is such a popular event, and it used to be like a training race for people heading into the Free Press Marathon. But one of the things, again, is usually over 6,000 people, 6,000 to 10,000 runners take part in the Brooksy Way each and every year. And so virtual this year, it's going to be interesting to see if they get as many participants, because it is a big fundraiser.
Yeah, and a lot of these marathons and these races, 5Ks, marathons, 10Ks, whatever they may be, half marathons, are going virtual. They're taking the route of go ahead, run, record your time, send it in. We'll do a virtual race. We still do all the fundraising efforts instead of getting a mass of people together in a municipal area and doing it that way. It'll be interesting to see if they do get, like you said, the same kind of fundraising participation. I would think off the top of my head they probably wouldn't. Because there isn't that fanfare there and there isn't that attraction and that spectacle, but I think they'll still have plenty of support.
I've done the half marathon a couple times with the Free Press half marathon, and you really have to train for it. And I will say, had I not been around all those other runners, I would have quit halfway between the race. I was so done and so over it, but the crowd and the other runners motivate you and keep you going. So you also wonder, are people just going to sign up for it and then maybe not run it or run a half of it? So we'll see. It's just it's not as fun, I guess.
Yeah, it's different when you're running alone than when you're running with a group of people. That's definitely the case. I ran cross country in high school and training for those seasons, getting those miles under you over the summer and over the spring were the toughest part of the season for me. Even more tough than the several, and I mean several, ankle sprains because of my glass ankles.
Tyler, I learn something new about you every single day.
So do I.
Hey, Oakland County is going to be matching grants for Arts, Beats, and Eats musicians. This is good to hear. Oakland County stepping up with $500,000 in matching grants for musicians performing in drive-in concerts in Royal Oak, as well as the virtual shows that are going to be online during Labor Day weekend. Nearly all work for the 500 individual professional musicians, among others, has been canceled since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. Annual Arts, Beats, and Eats Festival was canceled this Labor Day weekend because of the pandemic and replaced with the smaller The Beats Go On event. So it's going to be drive-in and virtual musical performances. And one of the things that they have been talking about with this is they are doing a fundraising event. You can go on, you can donate to the artists and the musicians to try to help support them as we continue to navigate, because they have taken one of the biggest hits. Music venues still not up and playing.
Yeah, and it's good to see that Oakland County is continuing to provide extra grants and extra funds through their CARES Act funding and through other funding that the County Board of Commissioners has approved in order to help a number of different industries. They're not isolating it. They're doing their best to not forget about anybody, and that's across the aisle, across the board, whether it be at Dave Coulter's office, whether it be at the number of the Oakland County Board of Commissioners offices. They're working really hard to keep Oakland County running smoothly, and that's everybody.
So you can find those stories and more on civiccentertv.com. Just click on coronavirus. We also put links to the CDC, as well as the state of Michigan, Oakland County, and our area local cities and township, their boards as well. So make it easy for you. Just one click away for all the information that you need as we continue to try to navigate COVID-19 in all aspects of this world. So one of the things that we want to go ahead and do right now is bring in Civic Center TV's own alumni as, Tyler, as always, is keeping me on.
It's all good. It's all good.
Keeping me in step here.
We're moving forward.
Because you're looking at this, you're trying to do the Zoom, you're trying to do this.
It's a lot going on.
Yeah.
It's a lot going on. It's all over the place.
And it's Monday, and I only have one cup of coffee. So,
Oh.
Hey, so let's go ahead and bring in Jonathon Jackson. He is a reporter and anchor at WNEM CBS Channel 5 up in Saginaw. But Jonathon used to be one of our own here at Civic Center TV. Jonathon, good morning.
Good morning, guys. How are you doing?
Wonderful.
The question is, how are you doing? What has this been like for you?
Oh, Ronnie, it's been interesting, to say the least. You know, ever since this pandemic hit, work has changed so much. And basically, I'm at home right now, and I've been working from home for the past 6 months, basically. So, yeah, kind of the norm right now for us.
So how does a reporter work from home when it's such a social job?
Well, you know, I'll say there are pros and cons to it. Obviously, you know, being able to do interviews now through Zoom and online are actually a lot easier. We get 5 minutes with them, and then they can go on to do, you know, what they want with their day. I'd say the cons, though, are, again, you don't have that face-to-face interaction usually that we get that kind of helps out with interviews sometimes and clears up any miscommunication or something like that. But I would say, yeah, you know, being from home, it comes with its own benefits, but there's nothing really that beats that face-to-face contact. Like I wish I could have with you guys now. That'd be great.
Jonathon Jackson with us, former Civic Center TV reporter and anchor on shows such as The Splash. Currently a reporter and anchor at WNEM CBS Channel 5 in Saginaw, with us on the Oakland County Megacast. And Jonathon, so much has changed in just the last 6 months in reporting the news. Yes, of course, it goes to the virtual angles that we're taking now. You're doing your interviews over Zoom. We're doing this interview entirely over Zoom as well, and reporting out in the field has definitely changed as well. Overall, how do you believe, as a relatively young journalist in this industry, and seeing this drastic change, what do you believe is going to be the lasting impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on reporting like you do?
Well, I'd say one of the lasting impacts might be the fact that, again, these online interviews might be the future in terms of at least gathering and reporting for a lot of journalists, I feel. Again, the convenience of being able to call up somebody, you know, from a faraway location rather than having to travel to them. There's a lot of good benefits to that. Transportation can be kind of one of the hindering factors in journalism when you're trying to get that last minute interview, you know, so being able to do Zoom and all that, pretty beneficial. And I see that continuing even after this pandemic is probably gone. So I'd say that is a benefit. And then also just being able, again, to, you know, sending stuff from home and working from home. I think some journalists are really enjoying that. And there's not always a need to be in the station. You know, that's something that I think some of us are learning, and some reporters are, you know, pushing to be working more from home nowadays. So I see that might continue again, even after all this is over.
Jonathon, do you go into the station at all?
Ronnie, well, I usually go in when I'm anchoring. That's pretty much the only time. When I'm reporting, they usually keep me at home unless there's a major breaking story that just absolutely requires my presence in the studio. But yeah, mostly just anchoring is the reason for it.
Yeah, technology has definitely aided in the journalism field. Are you a one-man band, or what we call a one-man band in the business, which means you write, shoot, and edit all your own stuff?
I am indeed multimedia journalist, MMJs as they call us out there every day, you know, fighting the good fight and trying to do everything by ourselves, which can be fun and also very challenging. I say fun, though, because you get to control everything when you write and create your story. You write it, you edit it, you send it, you know, all that. It's all your creative direction. But also the downside would be, you know, it is all on you as well. And there's a little bit of pressure that comes with that. And, you know, just a lot of hard work, too. So, you know, if you are, you know, a young journalist who want to get into this field, more than likely you'll start out as an MMJ And if you have that drive and passion to do it, go for it.
So, Jonathan, I want to ask you, I mean, you are from Michigan, which is good, but what's it been since you are home so much alone? How are you handling the isolation of being by yourself so much? Because there is a mental component to this.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I'm more of an introvert, which always surprises people because, like, how can you be an introvert in this field? You talk to people every day and all that. But, it's the isolation kind of factor at first didn't bother me too much. I was like, okay, work from home, call somebody up through Zoom and do the interview there, then, put everything together right here in my, bedroom or living room, nice and easy. But after a couple months, yeah, it does start to weigh on you a bit. I found myself actually looking forward to being called into the studio sometimes, when I get to anchor, or like I said, whenever we have a big breaking story, usually they say, okay, well, we're going to social distance you in the newsroom. So, maybe you stay on this side, the other reporters on the other side, producers on this side. And yeah, I found myself saying, yes, I very much look forward to coming into the, the station and doing some work there. Because it also gives you a change of pace, You can only stare at your bedroom walls so much before you start losing your mind a little bit.
Jonathon Jackson with us, reporter and anchor at WNEM CBS Channel 5 in Saginaw, former reporter and anchor here as well at Civic Center TV with us on the Oakland County Megacast. And Jonathon, so much of what you did with us here at Civic Center TV focused on the community and telling stories from a community angle, telling stories about people and how those people's stories ultimately impacted the rest of the greater community. Over the course of the pandemic, have you seen there be a shift in citywide news and traditional news to be more of a focus on the community than ever before?
Oh, Tyler, yeah, definitely. I mean, when we're all going through the same thing, community becomes a big part of how we all pull through together. And, even up here, I'll say in, mid-Michigan, we've had a lot of stuff going on recently. One of our biggest news stories that broke back in May was the Edenville and Sanford dams failure, which caused a lot of flooding damage to the Sanford and Midland areas. And during a pandemic, it's so hard to social distance for these people who have to get out of their homes and try and gather up what's left of their belongings from all this flooding. And we've seen tremendous community support and gathering together to help out those who've been affected by the floods and who are also trying to just find a new space to live during this pandemic. So I'd say for sure, yeah, community is going to be a big thing moving forward. And, for all of us going through the rest of this year, we have to pull together and support each other. We're seeing that through fundraisers for small businesses. We've seen that through, trying to GoFundMes for those with health and medical expenses who, can't afford to be in, a nursing home or something like that. So, yeah, it's definitely far more community focused lately in news, and that's good to see. I love doing stories like that focus on the community and how people can help out one another during this difficult time.
Jonathan is someone who is fairly new into the business. What's it like for you to see the shift from journalism in the public view and fake news? And sometimes you feel like journalists are a target now for what's going on in the community. How are you handling that? And do you feel like you have to defend the industry?
Yeah, sometimes I do. They say to a lot of our younger journalists starting out, try to have a thick skin, because not everybody obviously likes the news right now. And while they may call us fake news or, defund the media or all this other stuff, you just got to pull through it and remember that you're doing a job and giving information there's a lot of people who still need us and still want us out there doing what we need to do. So I try and keep that in mind. But I also say to my fellow journalists as well, pull together. Don't ever feel like you have to do this alone. Remember, there are other people out there going through the same thing. We are, a unit, so we've got to help each other out. And yeah, during this, period, there's a lot of, that fake news spreading around, but, remember that we're still doing a job. And for those who need us, we'll be there.
Jonathon Jackson with us. He is a reporter and anchor up at WNEM CBS Channel 5. You focus on Saginaw up in that area. Tell us, what are the big stories that you're covering right now? Of course, COVID-19 and the pandemic, but what else is going on up in Saginaw?
Well, there's a lot. I'd say what's going on right now mostly is a lot of, again, like I mentioned, the Midland and Sanford area, the flooding. We've also seen a lot of protest, out of the George Floyd and, how that's affected the community. And, just other local things, a lot of small businesses, like I mentioned, going under and people trying to find a way to survive or keep themselves going during this. So I'd say those are some of the bigger stories we've seen lately. And then, I cover also the Flint area as well. They just announced they got a new police chief in Flint, and of course the $600 million settlement for those in the Flint area from the water crisis was another big story that broke. So yeah, we are definitely busy up here in mid-Michigan, and there's not really been a slow moment ever since this pandemic started.
Jonathon Jackson with us. He's a reporter and anchor at WNEM CBS Channel 5 in Saginaw with us on the Oakland County Megacast. You recognize Jonathon from his time, of course, with us at Civic Center TV as our ace reporter and anchor, including shows such as The Splash, our news magazine, all throughout the greater West Bloomfield area on Civic Center TV and, of course, on 89.3 Lakes FM. So, Jonathon, just a few more minutes with you here on the program today. As a journalist that has transitioned from our station, which does news in its own format, to a different station, in a different market, that's more of a traditional news. What were some of those adjustments that you made over that time that had to be made in order for you to comfortably ease into that new role? And how did your time reporting with us and what we do here help you grow into that position?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Well, one thing, Tyler, I think that is we use cameras there at Civic Center TV. Everybody has, got to learn how to use one and edit as well through Adobe Premiere and all that. So I feel learning how to shoot and edit really helped before I moved on to a more traditional station where they kind of threw me in right away. As an MMJ, again, you have to kind of do everything yourself when it comes to editing, writing, and sending to the show and all that. So I'd say that definitely helped me in the transition, with interviews and all of the other things I've learned from Civic Center and Splash, getting to talk with a lot of great guests and meet with a lot of different people. It really helps you hit the ground running when I started here in Saginaw. And from that, it's been really great, a great transition so far. I've really enjoyed my time up here. It's a lot different than the more Metro Detroit area in that I'd say it's quieter, at night, it's not as much city noise, but it actually does kind of help me with sleeping. So, yeah.
So, Jonathon, how do you decide which stories you're going to cover each and every day? I think the general public would find that interesting.
So basically what we do is our morning meeting. Every morning is about, half an hour or so. We discuss the big stories of the day, kind of like what you guys do at the top of the show, and pick and choose which ones are most viable for today and which ones we can get to. When it comes to being in this pandemic, again, those meetings are all through Zoom, and it's more of a race against the clock to figure out, okay, how can we do this both safely, social distancing, and also get this, meet deadline? So that's when a lot of those Zoom interviews come in handy. But also, if we do have to go to a story, it's very interesting to watch as, we can't ride in the same car together. Reporters and photogs have to ride in separate cars. And if you go live, too, it's even more hectic because one person has to be in the truck while the other person has to stay outside the truck. And then vice versa, when we're doing our live shots, they have to be at least 6 feet apart, and they measure it out with their, the cords and everything. So, it's definitely different. But, yeah, when we're picking our stories for the day, it's all about basically what can we get to. And our news director kind of has a lot of input on that. She'll let us know, okay, this is what I want. And then the producers talk about, okay, pick out which reporter can go to which story. And then that's pretty much how it is. Yeah, it's boom, boom, boom.
Jonathon Jackson with us, currently a reporter and anchor at WNEM CBS Channel 5 in Saginaw, former reporter here at Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. Jonathon, just another couple minutes with you before we got to let you go. Anything else you'd like to discuss today on the program with us or other news that we haven't touched on in today's interview?
I'm mostly curious about how things are going over there. I've seen a bit of the Megacast, and I know you guys are, adapting to this format. how are you guys liking the radio so far, and how's the Splash doing? I am curious always to know about the Splash.
Well, the Splash, we haven't been doing that over the course of the pandemic. That we suspended that production just before because, as you know, it is so in-depth out in the field, and it's not something that we were really privy to be doing during the pandemic for safety reasons, and a lot of things were immediately shut down. But in terms of the Megacast, it's been an interesting experiment, definitely a good exercise in adjusting quickly and changing format, but still providing the same news coverage that we need to and the public expects of us each and every day, albeit in a different way and in a way that I think that the public appreciates differently than the Splash as well.
So,
Right, well, that's good.
Jonathan,
Yeah.
before we let you go, what advice would you give to other young journalists who are thinking about getting into news?
Good question. Yeah, I would say if you're thinking about getting into news, definitely consider one, learning to do more than probably what you expect when it comes to interviews. And like I said, editing and shooting. You know, most reporters, when they start out, will be MMJs. That's what a lot of news stations are looking for somebody who can kind of do it all. And then you can slowly transition if you want to like anchor or do more out of, more in studio stuff. Make sure when you're in school, take those journalism classes, those writing classes. And then also, if there's a video production class, learn how to use the camera, learn how to use editing software, and just have a passion for have a creativity, a drive to do this, and you'll definitely go far. I feel if you have the passion, if you have the drive, know that there's going to be hard days and some easy days too, but a lot of hard days because you will probably be by yourself a lot. But it's fun. It's a lot of fun work. I always say, I never do the same thing twice, really, and each day's different. And if you're at your desk, really, you're probably not doing your job because reporters are always on the move. So, yeah, definitely, if you like something with a lot of excitement, a lot of moving, a lot of action, this is probably a great career choice for you.
News doesn't happen in the newsroom. Quickly, can you talk a little bit about social media and its impact on journalism and how important it is for young journalists to really understand social media and utilize it?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Social media is key in a lot of our stories lately, actually, especially now. I'd say being able to communicate with people over Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all these other platforms, which is a lot of way of reaching out and finding out what's going on in the community right now. Because while people may not be, telling you, forthright, on social media, a lot of these hidden stories are, where we find them, and that's how they turn into bigger stories. So yes, and I also say, a lot of people nowadays are more used to using social media, so that's a good thing. You have it, continue to use it, expand upon it, and it's definitely going to become an even bigger growing trend in the industry, I see, at least in the years ahead.
Well, Jonathan, thank you very much for being with us today. We appreciate having you on the show.
Thank you so much, guys. Always a pleasure.
Jonathon Jackson with us on the Oakland County Megacast across the local area on Civic Center TV, WBTV as well, on the radio on 89.3 Lakes FM and on 88.1 WBFH The Biff. Today we're also on the Facebook page of the Greater West Bloomfield Chamber of Commerce. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about technology on the Oakland County Megacast. We thank you for tuning in. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
Hi, my name is Kurt Lawson, and I'm the Public Information Officer for West Bloomfield Township. We wanted to reach out to you, our older adults, to provide information that you may find useful during this difficult time. We want to ensure you that West Bloomfield Town Hall, our Waters and Utility Department, West Bloomfield Parks, and our police and fire departments continue to work hard on your behalf. Information and resources can be found on the Township website, the police Facebook and Twitter, or call West Bloomfield Park's COVID-19 Help Hotline. Please remember to keep your social distance of at least 6 feet, wear facial coverings when you leave your home, and wash your hands for at least 20 seconds with soap. These precautions will help keep you safe during these difficult times.
As rivals, we don't always see eye to eye.
Like who scored the best recruits?
Who's gonna be who?
And whether we wear green
or blue.
But one thing we can all agree on to help stop the spread of COVID-19, wear a mask.
Wear a mask.
Wear a mask.
Wear a mask. Wear a mask.
The ball's in your court, Michigan.
Welcome back to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl alongside Tyler Keefe. And you can watch and listen to us on Civic Center TV, Birmingham Area Municipal Access. Listen to us on the radio, 89.3 Lakes FM and 88.1 FM, The Biff. Nice to catch up with Jonathan and see that he is doing a good job. And, we started right here at Civic Center TV.
Yeah, it's great. He's doing great work up in Saginaw. He's been there for a little over 3 years now, and we definitely appreciate his work here. I appreciate his work here as well. Worked with him for a couple of weeks before he had moved on to that position as I was taking over the Splash at the time, and he continues to have an impact on us over here at Civic Center TV as he does on his community out in Saginaw now.
There's been a lot happening up in mid-Michigan,
Yes.
so busy time for the journalists and the reporters up in that area. Also a busy time for our next guest because, during the COVID crisis, public safety is not taking a break. They continue to operate and serve us, the public, and technology is helping them do that. And this is one of those things that we don't think about how important technology is for our first responders, but who designs that technology? Let's go ahead and bring in now Brian Proctor. He's the president of Public Safety Division at Tyler Technologies. Busy time for you guys, huh, Tyler?
There is no doubt about that. That's for sure. It's, between the pandemic and obviously all the discussion going around the nation around public safety, it's been an exciting few months for us at the Public Safety Division at Tyler.
One of the things I truly enjoy about this show is getting to meet people such as yourself and all of the businesses that are in our area that we don't know about. So first, just give us an overview of Tyler Technologies and what you actually do.
Sure. So Tyler's the largest company that's focused solely on providing software solutions to the public sector. So what we mean by that is federal, state, and local government agencies. And the division that I run, which is based here in Troy, Michigan, is focused on providing software solutions for police, fire, and EMS agencies throughout the country.
So talk a little bit, how do you come up with that technology, and do you customize it for each individual department?
Yeah, it's a great question. So if you think about at a very high level what we provide from a technology standpoint, we initially provide a solution that allows agencies to dispatch officers and firefighters. So if you think about a 911 call that comes in, they have to do something with that information. They use solutions to dispatch first responders as effectively and efficiently as possible. We provide those solutions. Once the officers or firefighters are out on a scene, they need to collect information, they need to get information. And that's typically done through mobile solutions, iPhones, laptops, those types of things. All of that software from the initial dispatch all the way through collecting the information and putting it into a records management system so that it can be submitted to the courts is done through our solutions. As to the customization, we do work with agencies to kind of tailor and configure our solutions to meet their workflows, but it's largely done the same way throughout the United States.
So we are speaking with Brian Proctor, president of Public Safety Division for Tyler Technologies. I think anyone who paid attention during the bankruptcy in the city of Detroit really got an inside look of some of these departments and their lack of technology, sometimes simply because of a budget issue. I know at the fire department in the city of Detroit, for them to get an alert, they literally would take a soda can, and put change in it, put it on the fax machine. It would come through a fax, and then it would hit the can, an alert fall to the ground, and that's how the firefighters were hearing about their next call. So, and it's good to say through the bankruptcy, they have been able to get new technology to help assist them in these things, but technology is so important. So how are you guys doing it with the technology? Because it's training. It's one thing to get the technology, but how are you training them during this time?
Yeah, so it's a great question. And, to the technology point, I mean, there's so many additional expectations of government and public safety agencies in general over the last few years and decade. And technology has been able to bridge that gap. I mean, your example is a good one, and it's kind of scary when you think about, certain ways that things are done without technology. But for us, training is really ongoing. We do it in a number of different ways. Initially, we may do some on-site trainings. We'll go to these agencies throughout the country and we'll train their professionals, whether it be their IT support or the officers and firefighters themselves or the dispatchers. We'll do that on site. We actually provide a tremendous amount of ongoing learning through video tutorials and e-learning components so that it stays top of mind. I mean, our technology is changing. Obviously, as you all know, technology changes on a fairly rapid basis. And we really focus on making sure that the communities are getting the most out of the technology that they're investing in. And we find that that's most effective through ongoing e-learning solutions that we can provide to agencies so that they can stay up to date, they can train new people, they can learn some of the new features. So it's a good solid mix for us of on-site as well as virtual learning.
Brian Proctor with us, the president of the Public Safety Division at Tyler Technologies, with us on the Oakland County Megacast. And Brian, you talk about, over the course of several years, the changes that have come about in public safety and the ways that technology has had to be adapted to those changes. What changes have been made specifically over these last 6 or so months during the pandemic as these departments, fire, police, whatever other departments in public safety, have had to make major adjustments? How has technology had to also be adjusted in order to aid them in these critical operations?
Yeah, I would say it's really it's in two key areas, Tyler. So it's the first and foremost, it's data. So it's transparency, it's reporting, it's talking about incidents and being able to share as a public safety agency the data with your constituents, whether it be county commissioners, city councils, citizens themselves. The ability to publish and talk about and show data has power. So that's something that we've really focused on with our public safety agencies. And the second component that I think is equally important is that mobility solution that I talked about earlier. So being able to have information at your fingertips, knowing when you approach a situation, what you're dealing with, the information being able to be transmitted to where the officer or the firefighter may be is incredibly powerful. And I think, over the last few months and certainly over the last few years, that shift has been happening where there's more importance placed on those two key areas. And I think that'll continue. I think the demand for transparency, the demand for information in a mobile world is going to continue to increase. And, for us, that's exciting. We enjoy being able to work with these public safety agencies to solve problems and meet the challenges that, they experience on a regular basis.
I would imagine that servicing governments and law enforcement agencies is completely different than some other regular businesses because there is a level of security that goes along with that. Can you talk a little bit about the security aspect of what you're doing and how you're making sure that these systems aren't hacked? Because we've seen it so much during this time, just even with Zoom.
Yeah, there's no doubt. You're spot on, Ronnie. Over the last few months, there's been a lot of, kind of malicious people and forces that are looking to hack and access data, government data, whether it be officer information or, specific financial transactions, kind of protected information government-wise. We at Tyler have really focused over the last couple years of making sure that our security practices and the way we design our solutions are insulated from those attacks. It's certainly something that we take a very seriously, we invest in heavily, and more importantly, we work with our agencies to make sure that they have good practices in place. You'd be amazed at how many times just a simple oversight where it's a click on a link in an email that exposes things, best practices that we're able to talk to our agencies about to ensure that they're making sure that their employees and their officers and users are doing what they can. But for us at Tyler, and particularly in the public safety division, given the sensitivity of the data that our systems deal with, security is kind of a foundational aspect of the way that we design our software solutions.
Brian Proctor with us on the Oakland County Megacast, with us all across the local area on on Civic Center TV on Birmingham Area Municipal Access, 89.3 Lakes FM, and 88.1 WBFH. The Biff Brian Proctor is the president of the Public Safety Division at Tyler Technologies. The internet has also become a much more critical utility for people all across the board. How much more has the internet become vital to the operations of what you do at Tyler Technologies, and in particular for these public safety agencies?
Yeah, so for us, what we've seen is that there's this move to the cloud. You always hear about the cloud. It has different definitions, but really, for us and for our public safety agencies, it's the ability to harness the power of large systems, large compute power that they don't necessarily have to manage. And for us in the public safety agencies we serve, that's important. You mentioned, I think earlier, Ronnie, about budget pressures and constraints. One of the areas that a lot of governmental agencies spend money on is supporting those systems that are on premise. And what we've seen is there's a desire, given the security that I've talked about earlier and the ability to use the power of the cloud, there's this desire to slowly move over time and access those capabilities. Now, what that does is it places significant importance on connectivity. So the internet being up and having redundancy and systems in place so that if you do experience issues with connectivity, you're able to fail over so that you have this seamless transition and there's no loss of service. And particularly in public safety, it's imperative, obviously, that 911 systems are in place, that communication channels between dispatch centers and the officers or firefighters out in the field are maintained. So it's kind of a we look at it from two different ways: the power of being able to use the cloud, but also the importance of the connectivity and ensuring that internet connection is stable and solid and viable.
So you're a tech guy. Give us a peek into the future. Where do you think we're going? And can you talk at all about AI, artificial intelligence?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. So first off, I do think that data and mobility are going to be, key aspects of where we're going, particularly in public safety. A good example of how we're using AI and how we're thinking about AI is reducing officer time of creating reports. So what I mean by that is every time an officer goes out, interacts on a scene, he or she has to take down information so that information can be placed into a data repository that then can be reported on later. You would be amazed at the amount of time it takes officers to create these reports. They're very tedious in certain situations. And a lot of times they're repetitive. So like an accident report, for example, it's the same kind of information, but it takes just as long. So we're actually working to use AI to pre-populate and guide the officer in a way that reduces the amount of time that he or she has to spend on a report. And the goal, obviously, is to get that officer out doing what he or she wants to be doing, which is working with citizens, protecting communities, acting to make sure that things are safer. No officer says, as he or she goes through the academy or decides that they want to be a police officer, says, I can't wait to write reports. And that's what we want to do. So we're actually using AI to kind of streamline that process and reduce the amount of time that officers are spending on those reports.
See, you're a hero to the heroes then, because police officers, I know several, and report writing is definitely one of their big pet peeves. How concerned are you that your system will go down at some point in time? Because there is always that chance, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's always a chance, right? So you have to plan for that. In our business, in public safety, it's always planning. I mean, if you think about the agencies we serve, police and fire agencies have plans so that they know how to respond to an incident. And they always think about, okay, if something happens, what's my plan after that? What's my plan B, so to speak? And for us in technology, it's no different. I mean, we design our systems to make sure that if we do have a situation where there is an outage or there is some downtime, what do we do? How do we make sure that, that information continues to flow? And a good example of that is connectivity out in the cars. So for example, our mobile solutions, the piece that gives officers information as they respond to a scene, those need to make sure that they can work if the internet connectivity out, the LTE or your cell phone cellular coverage is lost, they need to make sure that they work, and we design our system to do that. So it's always, our engineers, our developers are very intelligent people. They're creative, but first and foremost, they're always thinking about, from the officer or dispatcher's perspective, what could go wrong, and how do we make sure that we provide a solution that can get them by in that situation where they have those challenges.
Brian Proctor with us. He is the president of the Public Safety Division at Tyler Technologies, with us on the Oakland County Megacast. And Brian, with recent events across the U.S., more police departments, including local departments here in our coverage area like West Bloomfield and Kegel Harbor, are looking into adding body cameras to each of their officers. And with that, a common question that comes up, or a common issue that comes up, is how are you going to store all of that data? And that's got to be something that's of discussion from public safety departments with your company, as well as they're going forward and storing that much more data for the good of the public and the good of their officers. How are you and your company working with these companies and working with these public safety departments in order to bridge that gap between the necessity of these body cameras and also the issue of a lot of data storage?
Yeah, so that gets to the cloud aspect of what I was talking about. So us at Public Safety Division, we don't provide body cameras. What we do is we interface to those body camera providers and pull in certain aspects of that video information into our records system that we provide to these public safety agencies. But you're exactly right. There's all of this information out there, and being able to harness that and kind of search it and learn from it and being able to report on it is very important. I think one of the things that I think will come over the next few years here is a better sense of what do agencies need to keep and for how long, and then how do you manage that massive sea of data, because it's a lot, to your point. Right now that's being placed in the cloud, and it's there's security around that, but I think particularly as things evolve, we'll continue to see that things change as to best practices and standards for handling that dash cam and body cam videos.
Brian Proctor with us. He's the president of the Public Safety Division with Tyler Technologies. Before we let you go, anything that you want to share with our viewers and our listeners about your company and the work that you are doing over there?
Yeah, sure. So like I said, we're based in Troy, Michigan. We've got about 500 employees that work for our division. Tyler itself's got about 5,000 employees, but these are people that live in this community. We have, many people that live in Oakland County, Wayne County, Macomb County, that feel very passionately about the work that they do and the agencies that they support. We've got a lot of connections here. In the Public Safety Division, we've got 1,600 clients throughout the United States, but we have a stronghold, particularly in Macomb County, that uses a lot of our solutions. So, for us, it's something that we take very seriously. We work actively to make communities safer together with our clients, and we're a great place, and we're actually in this pandemic we're hiring. It's a great place to work, and it's something that I think we in this community and your viewership in particular, we've got a lot of employees and a lot of clients in this kind of Metro Detroit area.
It's great to hear that you're hiring so many people suffering during the pandemic. So tell us a little bit about what qualifications are you looking for in a new employee?
Yeah, so we're always looking for new developers. So, for example, I mean, the pandemic's been strange, right? We've worked from home since March, but we actually conducted this summer our normal software developer internship program. So we had 15 software developers that worked virtually throughout the summer on certain projects from, universities in the area, in particular, University of Michigan and Oakland University, as well as Michigan State. So what we look for is we look for people that have and we hire different, different people for different departments, but predominantly we're looking for technical talent, software developers, folks that have those technical skills, but also people that want to make a difference. I mean, we're a mission-driven organization, as I had mentioned, this desire to make communities safer. But really what we're looking for is technical talent, people that have the ability to write good software, to work in teams, collaborate, and make a difference.
It's if you have to be virtual, it's good to be virtual with a tech company because you guys are so tech savvy. Real quick before we let you go, I think Tyler here is envious of that shirt hanging on your wall there.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so I get that question. It's funny as as we've done these Zoom, you get like a window into people's lives that you don't normally would get, right? You go into their homes and you get a sense of where they're at. So that's actually a 2005 signed Tom Izzo jersey, and that's the significance of the number 5. It's not anybody's jersey itself, but it was signed by Coach Izzo back in 2005.
Well, Brian, go green.
Go away.
Well, thank you so much for taking time and being with us on the Oakland County Megacast. We definitely appreciate it and appreciate all that you and your team do and keeping our public safety, our first responders up to date on technology.
Yeah, I enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
Brian Proctor, president of the Public Safety Division, Tyler Technologies. Great to see a company doing great work, but also supporting all those that are risking their lives on the front lines to keep all of us safe. Technology, I will tell you, Tyler, is so vital to these first responders, and it's changed a lot over the years.
Yeah, and especially right now when they've been so much more active over the last several months, particularly at the beginning of the pandemic. I think about our fire department in West Bloomfield, particularly in the Tri-Cities, which is both under the same jurisdiction, and Greg Flynn and his team, and how active they were in West Bloomfield as the coronavirus was initially spreading, and that also shows in different departments throughout the local area as well. Technology played a key role in their ability to know where they were going, know who they were dealing with, knowing if those people had any symptoms, and being able to prepare themselves and the people they were working with out in the field to be ready for those situations and be safe. And technology companies like Tyler and people like Brian Proctor that we've spoken to are really hard at work to help these public safety departments maintain their own safety and the safety of the public on top of everything else that's going on with COVID-19.
Yeah, I know that Brian is with the Public Safety Department, but I was on their website earlier, and one of the other things they do is come up with routes for schools for their bus drivers. And that's important this time of year because the routes are changing as fewer kids are going back to school. Some are remote, some aren't, and so they're having to make changes to the route. So that's just another service that they do provide. And the good thing too is they're a local company hiring here locally, and as he mentioned, Oakland University is one of the places that they do recruit from, so that's good to know as well. So all you tech savvy people out there, young kids getting into that world, check out Tyler Technologies as a possible future employer. Hey, so speaking of Tyler, this Tyler and we're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we are going to check in with the Troy Chamber of Commerce, see how things are going over there as more and more businesses and more restaurants start to reopen amid this pandemic. You're listening to and watching the Oakland County Megacast.
Michigan, we still need to stay careful because we don't want to go backwards, back to where we started. So keep standing 6 feet apart. Keep wearing a mask in public. And if you have symptoms, talk to a healthcare provider about getting tested. To move forward, let's all do our part. So stay careful. Michigan.gov/coronavirus.
Hi, my name is Kurt Lawson, and I'm the Public Information Officer for West Bloomfield Township. We wanted to reach out to you, our older adults, to provide information that you may find useful during this difficult time. We want to ensure you that West Bloomfield Town Hall, our Waters and Utility Department, West Bloomfield Parks, and our police and fire departments continue to work hard on your behalf. Information and resources can be found on the Township website, the police Facebook and Twitter, or call West Bloomfield Park's COVID-19 Help Hotline. Please remember to keep your social distance of at least 6 feet, wear facial coverings when you leave your home, and wash your hands for at least 20 seconds with soap. These precautions will help keep you safe during these difficult times.
for tuning in to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl alongside Tyler Keith as we work each and every day to bring you the latest information on COVID-19 and its impact on us here in Oakland County and throughout the state of Michigan. Troy, Michigan, one of the best places to go shopping if you're a shopper. I may or may not be. And I will tell you, it was hard. It was hard when Somerset first closed down. Then they reopened a little bit slow. It was kind of weird to go over there, Tyler. But I was there a couple weeks ago and it was packed. So it looks like things are picking back up in Troy, Michigan, and that's good to see. But let's go ahead and who can fill us in on all the details? Tara Tomcsik-Husak. I just totally messed up your name. I'm sorry.
Totally good. We've gotten it right so far, so we're good.
President and CEO, Troy Chamber of Commerce. How are you this morning?
I am good. It's a Monday morning. It's sunny out, and it's already a busy day, so that's a good sign.
It is feeling a little bit like fall today, though.
It is. I'll take it.
You know, so tell us, how are things in Troy? It seems like the restaurants are getting busier. The mall is definitely picking up. How are things? Still business is struggling, though.
Well, I mean, yeah. So you're still dealing with capacity limits and you're still working with, so we still have the 50% occupancy. There's still more expenses involved when you have to like change your entire format of operations. So everyone is doing really well. I will say everyone's doing good, but obviously they want to do better, but we all do. That's the nature of business. But as you saw, like you mentioned, Somerset, it's completely picking up. We're seeing traffic go a little bit heavier over there, and then our restaurants are doing pretty well. So it's all progressing in the right direction.
In this time, talk a little bit about how important it has been for businesses to be a part of the chamber or any type of organization to help bring them together.
You know, it's kind of like having your own external team to help support you. I think joining it, people don't understand how much a chamber actually does for their business community. I mean, I can tell you just right now, we've connected some of our members to over $3 million in grant funding to help their businesses succeed. We've connected them to new customer bases. We built relationships so that businesses can start partnering up together. There's no greater time than in a crisis than to be a part of a chamber because it's so helpful to know you have another ear and you have another person trying to help. And it's been great. Our members have been really happy, but it's one of those aspects of we don't stop. There's no off switch to our work. There's no challenge that we're not willing to step up to help. So it's been a very interesting 5-6 months.
Tara Tomcsik-Husak with us on the Oakland County Megacast. She's the president and CEO of the Troy Chamber of Commerce with us today on the program. And you talk about millions of dollars in grant money that has gone to local businesses in your chamber. And on top of that, we some of those grants have, of course, probably come from Oakland County, which has taken a really strong effort in supporting the local businesses and all different sectors of business as well. How important has the relationship between the Oakland County government and businesses in Troy and other surrounding areas been to their survival during this pandemic?
You know, it's working obviously with the city of Troy and then Oakland County. It has been instrumental. They have been staying abreast of everything. So they've been actually working with our members. We've been the ears for them to let them know the struggles and the things that everyone's trying to overcome. Even from an educational standpoint, like we do a lot of programming around education, but we've had some great opportunities with the county and the state to offer some education pieces to help them get their business through this crisis. But when it deals with the grant funding, it's been substantial to help all of our nonprofits and our businesses because there also was a giant nonprofit grant that came out. The thing is our businesses, when crises happen like this, they don't have the time to do the research and find what are the next grants, what are the next things coming up that they can apply for. Sometimes they're too scared because it could be a tedious amount of work, but we'll know on the back end, hey, this is going to take you 30 minutes. We'll walk you through it as well and help. So we've teamed up with Oakland County specifically to try to help people identify if they're eligible for these grants and then help them get through the process. So it's been instrumental for a lot of our businesses. One of our nonprofits got almost $60,000 that's going to help them survive. So it has been a huge deal, and it's been very important to be able to connect our members to these resources.
Yeah, for that nonprofit, that money means a lot. So, Tara, tell us, we've all had to change and pivot, as we say, during this time. What has the chamber had to do that you think has made you stronger that may stick around post-pandemic?
Well, I mean, everything we've had to change. Chambers are in the business of connecting. So we had to switch completely into a virtual platform. So it's interesting providing opportunities to network and to have conferences and learn education, to have a fun happy hour event. We've had to switch to a completely digital platform. Now, we're excited because we do have some in-person events coming up soon, but we're going to keep this digital platform. We realize we have to meet people where they are and work within their timelines as well. So sometimes we know having an event during a lunchtime makes sense because that's when there's a little bit of a break time for the people who are working at home. So we've really had to adapt a lot, and our technologies had to increase. We have an NPN conference that we've done every year in person, and it's going to be our 15th year that we have this nonprofit conference. We've always done it in person. We had to invest in a platform where we can have 12 speakers speaking at the same time, have an expo center done all virtually. We have our Top of Troy event that is on September 30th. It's our Women in Leadership event. It's a huge deal. It always brings in hundreds of people. We switched that to a digital platform. But although we feel like it's removed a little bit of the personalization, we've realized it's also reached people that never had the opportunity to come to our events. So it is nice, but we are going to stay virtual from moving on forward and also have in person at the same time. So maybe we're just doubling up the work. But it's been great. And also, I would say stronger relationships with funding sources. We've never had to research all these different types of grants and all these different types of things to help our businesses succeed in a time of crisis. We're the business experts. We're the ones who are getting all the information first, and we're the ones who are sharing it out. So it's been interesting, but I think all of these things we're going to continue to do moving forward.
Terry, you talk about partnership as being playing such a key role in the survival of local businesses in Troy and in other areas. In Troy specifically, what are some examples of how these local businesses, through the chamber or not, have partnered together and been able to thrive or survive at the very least upon those partnerships?
Well, a lot of it is that business to business mentality of supporting local. And then also some of it is that PPE. So when we talk about this personal protection equipment, when we didn't have any at the time, our members stepped up and they started to work in creating hand sanitizers, signage that stayed the 6 feet distance, mask making. So that was a big impact to make sure our members actually shopped with each other. But a lot of it is just that personal support. We know all of our restaurants, and we send a call to action of, hey, these are the restaurants you need to start supporting because, hey, purchase gift cards. If you're grabbing lunch, make sure you're stopping by one of these members. It's tenfold. If you have questions about your finances, here's our list of financial advisors you can reach out to. If you have tax questions, here's all of our CPAs. So I think it just gives you a relationship of trust because the people in the chamber, they're all working together and it's all ships rise. So no one has the mentality of it's going to be me, I'm the survivor. It's we're all in this together. We're all going to rise together.
Bringing people together through this crisis. You're listening to the Oakland County Megacast on 89.3 WBLD, Orchard Lake, 88.1 WBFH, Bloomfield Hills. Tara, can you talk a little bit about some of your virtual events that are coming up? I was really surprised to see the one mental health listed on the chamber because I guess I was thinking that would be maybe a health issue, but it does impact businesses as well.
Well, and here's the issue is that COVID has created a little bit of a damper in all of our mental health. We're all dealing with social isolation. We're dealing with higher levels of anxiety. There's a lot of businesses who still have the fear that they're not going to make it. You have families. So you're having employees now work from home who are doing the job of being a business person and a home educator to their children. So there's a lot going on, and how do you identify it? How do you take a breath? How do you move forward? And we have some great speakers. We have Gretchen Marsh. We have Lori Kennett Ellison from Birmingham Maple Clinic. And they're going to talk us through, from even a business perspective, how to identify these different levels of anxiety that we have in our daily routine. And what does this do to us? Because in order for us to be able to focus and pay attention, we have to pay attention to what's going on with our mental health. And this has become a bit of a crisis in the business industry. So we're really excited to have this take place and just have an open conversation around what do we need to do to better ourselves to then better our business as well.
So for our listeners and our viewers, if they are not a member of the chamber, can they participate in this as well?
Yeah, so we do have, we obviously would love the companies to join as members, but we also have non-member fees for the event. So most of our digital events that we have online are traditionally free for our members, but if you are a non-member, you are still welcome to go to troychamber.com, go to the event section, and then there is a way you can still register as a non-member for a very small fee.
Tara Tomcsik-Husak with us on the Oakland County Megacast. She is the president and the CEO of the Troy Chamber of Commerce as we broadcast all throughout the local area. Tara, just another few minutes with you before we'll let you go today. Is there anything else going on in Troy with the Chamber that people should be aware of, or other information that we haven't spoken about today on the program?
Well, I think it's really just staying abreast. I would say make sure you follow all of our social media channels. So that is Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And then also go to troychamber.com to kind of pay attention to what is going on. We have a lot of resources that we push out through social media. So every day, if there's a new grant that comes out, or if there's new information pertaining new business trends or any educational sources, it's good to pay attention to those resources because we do have that go out on a daily routine. For the most part, we're just excited. We are still doing okay as a chamber. We are still growing strong and still working hard. And I guess if you do have questions or if you do have concerns about things, to always feel free to reach out to your local chamber. They do have the answers most of the time. And if they don't have the answers, they're willing to find it for you. So if you're not a member of a chamber, I do recommend joining your local chamber.
Tara, you touched on social media. Can you talk a little bit about how important that has been for so many businesses during this time?
It's extremely important. A lot of things change on a daily routine, and I can go back to talking about some of the restaurants, but even some of the restaurants, they were changing. You can do curbside. Here's our safety aspects. But people are in such strong digital age. Even though we're working from home, we're always checking our phones still. We're always checking social media to see the trends that are going on. We were surprised sometimes we would do a post and people would be engaged so quickly and they would get the little bit of facts, but they didn't read it in an email. I think we're all a little zoomed out and also bombarded with emails, but social media still is staying on trend. People are still paying attention to that. So once you realize you're going to have to reach people where they are in a variety of ways, I think social media has been really impactful in that direction.
We're all learning and growing as we continue to navigate this pandemic. Real quickly, anything that you do want to share with the listeners and the viewers before we let you go?
I would just say everybody stay positive, everybody lead with empathy. So the Troy Chamber, we are servant leaders. We do everything to help our businesses, and each business has their own struggles and own things that they have to overcome. Just be patient. Sometimes things are taking a little bit longer. Sometimes we have to do things we don't want to do, but lead with a little bit of empathy and understanding and compassion to all of our businesses as they're moving forward.
You know, Tara, real quickly, before we let you go, I do want to ask, have you heard from any of your members' issues with the public and the mask mandate?
Yes and no. Obviously, there's some struggles with it. A lot of times it's going with the servers are asking people that they have to wear a mask during transition, and there's some arguments and things like that. But I will say Troy has been pretty great about it. And I think that's the piece of saying, hey, you know, if you don't believe that masks are necessary, that's up to your beliefs. But there are people who do. So please just be a little empathetic for our restaurants. There are restaurants who could lose their liquor license if people don't follow suit. So everybody has to kind of follow the rules at this time and just to be patient with them. We are all open to our views. You're all welcome to freedom of speech, but just be a little sympathetic to what they have to deal with.
So true, because so many of these people on the front lines, your servers, your host, your hostess, they're young kids, they're college kids, They're young, you know, and So like you said, show them some grace. Thank you so much for being with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. We appreciate your insight. We appreciate the updates. Stay safe, stay healthy, and thank you for what you do.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, you guys.
You're listening to and watching the Oakland County Megacast. Tyler and I are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be speaking with Mark Hall. He has been an advocate for trying to get high schoolers back on the football field as they have been shut down during this time, suspended until the springtime. Some people do believe football needs to be played now. We'll be speaking with Mark after this break.
Michigan, we're calling on you to save lives. Don't ignore it. Don't let it go to voicemail. It's urgent. In fact, it's critical. Because if you've been in close contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19, you may have been exposed to the virus. And you could get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department. So please answer the call to learn how to protect yourself, your family, and friends. We're calling on you to stop the spread of COVID-19, to make it safe to reopen businesses and help Michigan move forward. So if you get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department, you may have been exposed to someone with COVID-19. To protect us all, answer the call. Learn more at michigan.gov/containcovid. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test. And now it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our test locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Welcome back to the Oakland County Megacast. You know, it's fall time. We feel it in the air today, and fall time for a lot of people means football, especially high school football. It's estimated there's about 34,000 students in the state of Michigan that play football. But on August 14th, the Michigan High School Athletic Association announced it was moving football from the fall to the spring due to the coronavirus pandemic. There are a lot of people who feel that there are reasons for these students to be playing football more than just a game. It's for their health and their mental health. And there has been a push, Let Them Play, that has been going on. It's an organization. They've been taken to social media. They had a rally in Lansing last Friday to try to get this message out that these students should be playing football. And one of the people behind this effort is Mark Hall, co-organizer of the Let Them Play Michigan rally. Mark, thank you for being with us on the Oakland County Megacast.
Thanks, Ronnie. Thanks for having me.
Tell us again, how'd you get involved in this, and why do you feel it's important for these students to be on the football field?
Sure. When the High School Athletic Association, Mark Ewell and his team announced that they were going to postpone high school football until the spring, a Facebook group called Let Michigan High School Football Play, organized by Jamie McIlvaney, started to get steam. My wife and I became involved. We have two boys that are involved in high school sports, football, wrestling, track, varsity players. And so we joined the group, and then we became one of a dozen organizers for the rally in Lansing. And delving into this, we understood that the Michigan High School Athletic Association was at first full steam ahead with fall football, looking at science And then at the behest and Executive Order 160 from Governor Whitmer, they had to postpone until spring in hopes that they'll be able to get the season in the springtime. And so that's how we initially got involved with this, and it's kind of taken off since then.
It was a nice crowd at the Capitol this past Friday. From the video that I saw, it looked like there were probably 400 to 500 people there taking part in this. Tell me why, when they're saying that they feel like it's for the health of the students that we not play football right now, why do you feel like it is important and it's okay for these students to take the football field?
Well, we've spoken with doctors. We've looked at the data. When you look at the CDC chart on the 0 to 24 age group, there has been virtually 0% deaths in that age group, very minimal death rate. We know that kids under the age of 18 that are otherwise healthy tolerate the coronavirus very, very well. I believe in Michigan, there's only been one death, and that child had underlying health issues. So although that's tragic, at what point does the cure become worse than the disease? And what we're talking about is mental health experts are now referring to the second pandemic with our young people. The depression that's caused from the isolation, from the quarantining at home, no school. We know they're going to be facing depression, anxiety, drug and alcohol use, dropout rates increasing, and suicides. The numbers there are, the risk from those mental health issues far, far outweigh any risk that COVID poses to these young people.
Mark Hall with us on the Oakland County Megacast. He's a co-organizer. Let Them Play Michigan. You had the rally last weekend in Lansing. Right now we are seeing our neighboring states. They are playing football in Ohio. Is that hard to try to explain to some of the students why they would be doing it, in another state but not Michigan?
Yeah, it's the hypocrisy.
So we're having a little bit of an issue here. I think you're back, Mark. Just a little bit of a drag in your Zoom interview, which we're all experiencing and going through right now. Let's see if we can bring you back in.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Mark, you're back. Can you go ahead and we were talking about the state of Ohio playing football.
Right. We're seeing the frustration here. My boys, very strong, intelligent young men, they're feeling the frustration, kind of a hopelessness. And not only Ohio, when you look at schools that choose to do in-person education this year in Michigan, they're going to be able to run physical education classes in their gymnasium. They're going to be able to have 30 kids in the gymnasium during the school day, during the 6-7 hours of the school day, where they can go in and they can play basketball, they can play volleyball, they can learn how to do those. But magically at 3 o'clock, the volleyball teams and the basketball teams can't come into the gymnasium because now it's dangerous. How do you to come to terms with that with a teenager? How do you try to explain that rationale? We're worried about, clearly, we want to use our safety protocols and not be ignorant. But the kids have participated in practices. They've gone travel baseball teams throughout the summer with virtually no issues whatsoever. The practices on the football field with no issues, and putting the safety protocols in place. Certainly, we're not ignorant. We want to be safe with this, but the caution doesn't call for the outright shutting down of these activities. How is it that we worry about our kids coming home and passing the disease, the virus, to elderly? Well, you isolate, just like you do in the regular flu season. If grandma and grandpa have compromised health issues, then you don't go see them during the flu season. It's the same thing here. But what does our governor do? Our governor puts the infirmed, the COVID patients in nursing homes with our most vulnerable citizens, and the death rate skyrockets in our nursing homes. How do I explain that to my boys? It's defying logic. It's hypocritical. It's confusing. The executive orders are confusing. So we're frustrated. We think that the risk that eliminating these competitions, these healthy competitions of face-to-face with these kids, and the opportunities and the memories that are being lost, it can't be undone.
Mark Hall with us. He is one of the co-lead organizers of the Let Them Play Michigan rally that happened recently in the Capitol in Lansing, arguing to allow MHSAA football to continue as it has been suspended for the fall season into the spring due to COVID-19. So with that being the case, Mark, with you want your organization, the athletes that are in support, the parents that are in support of playing football, want football to happen, but you also want to, at the same time, continue to curb the spread of COVID-19 and take that seriously. So what would you imagine in that case if you're able to negotiate with the MHSAA and figure out a way to make football happen and make it happen safely in terms of bringing crowds in terms of limiting interaction with the players in order to allow a safe football season, but a football season to happen nonetheless?
Yeah, again, we're not blind to the risk. And with life, there's risk. Getting in your car, there's risk. So we have exhibited what the state had required during the preseason football. Social distancing on the sidelines, mask worn on the sidelines, temperature checks at the beginning of practice, decontamination of the locker rooms, not sharing of water. The boys had to bring their own water bottles in. So we went to and above the protocols requested by the state, and we were successful. Limiting the amount of spectators, if you have any at all. We had looked at doing a live broadcast for the families to where they could watch from home at the football games. So we're willing to meet, safety, rational and reasonable safety precautions, but the finish line seems to keep getting moved. The boys do everything that's asked of them, and our line, the curve is being flattened here in Michigan. We see that. We're 40th in the state as far as recent numbers, 40th in the country. So we're willing to do what is reasonable, but and the High School Athletic Association isn't against fall football. They are against they're following the Executive Order 160, which pretty much ties the High School Athletic Association's hands.
So, Mark, I know one of the big issues has to do with so many of these senior football players, and that if they can't play, maybe they're not going to get the scholarships for college. Are you talking to your sons about trying to come up with alternative ways to highlight them and their skills so they can be competitive with, say, some of the players in Ohio or in Indiana, so that they can make sure they get scholarships for college as well?
Yeah, we are absolutely seeking alternative possibilities. Of course, we push as far as the academic scholarships, looking at that avenue. But let's not be naive. Athletics for many kids, especially many underprivileged children, young men, athletics is a doorway to higher education. It's the doorway to their future. And if we close this door, I mean, where is the hope for a lot of these young athletes? I mean, it may lead to desperation. It's like the dropout. We're speaking to school administrators. They're concerned about a lot of these young athletes throwing in the towel and just heck with it, dropping out of school and entering the workforce. And what kind of employment can they hope for with not even a high school education? When they are possibly thinking of college, higher education, and those avenues being shut down. It's terrible.
So the parents, you guys are organized. You've now had the protest. What's next?
This. We want Governor Whitmer to hear us. We want Governor Whitmer to hear this isn't a political issue for us. sports isn't Democratic, it's not Republican, it's athletics. Our members, over 18,000 now, come from every walk of life, every political belief of life. And we want her to hear us, that we want our kids back face-to-face doing competitions, participating in sports, because there are so many life lessons, there are so many memories and opportunities that athletics create. We're talking marching band, we're talking cheerleading, we're talking volleyball, swimming. It's not just about football. Wrestling, right now, as of November 1st, wrestling teams can meet under the 4-player rule, which means 4 players to 1 coach with no competitions, and they have to meet outdoor. You tell me how in Michigan, wrestlers can wrestle outdoors in a Michigan winter. So winter sports are done in the state as it stands right now, unless that executive order is changed. And we need her to revisit this and look at the numbers. She told the High School Athletic Association, Mark Ewell, in a meeting, when they asked to look at her numbers, the science that she's relying upon, she stated she didn't have to share that information. Well, why is this secret? If you're trying to keep my children safe, and I'm making a decision based on flawed science, let me know. Let me see the numbers. Let me see the information. I'm an educated man. I can figure it out. But please don't tell me you care more about my children than I do.
Mark Hall with us. He's one of the co-organizers of the recent Let Them Play Michigan rally. Just another few minutes with you, Mark. If people want to find more information, join the cause, find more information about what you are aiming at with this cause, trying to get fall sports, particularly football, to be put back into play, where can they find more information and get in contact with the group?
We have a Facebook group. It's Let Michigan Football Play, and Let Michigan High School Football Play. And we would encourage people to join there. There's a petition, and they can join that the Facebook group.
So, Mark, I do want to ask, we've had so many other people on the show from different organizations, whether it be the movie theaters, the bowling alleys, businesses that are also continuing to be shut down. They've gotten nowhere with the governor. Why do you think you guys will be able to get this changed? And is there a cutoff to when you could even try to make this happen?
The cutoff is probably halfway through the season, because even in the springtime, the season's going to be drastically cut down. And again, there's no guarantees in the springtime if we have football. And what do we do if the winter sports are shut down as they stand now, wrestling, football, or basketball, and swimming? What are we going to do then? Are we going to try to squeeze all 3 seasons into the spring? And what sport does my one son who does football, wrestling, and track, what sport does he choose? It's to the point right now, it's never too late. If we don't get the governor to revisit this and allow the High School Athletic Association the flexibility by reducing the restrictions in Executive Order 160, we may be successful in getting winter sports back into this play. But we want her to look at it. The numbers aren't there. It doesn't support. And we understand there's risk with everything we do. We, as a society, I think, have learned to reevaluate how we live our lives, washing hands, avoiding the sick and elderly. That's great. But at some point in time, we're going to have to come out of hiding. We're going to have to be able to live our lives. My heart breaks for these gym owners, movie theaters. These people are in financial ruin. And again, I'm not sure this calls for these drastic measures. And I'm also concerned that the governor, under her own power, extends her own executive emergency authority. Our state legislature has been rendered worthless in this. Our elected officials that are supposed to represent us in our districts have no say in this issue. The governor has free reign. She is the state lawmaker and the state law enforcer in this. And that is not right. That is not the land of the free. And I strongly disagree with her on that. And I wish we would bring the state legislature into the fold the people that I voted for to represent me and my community and have a honest and open discussion and vote on these issues.
So has there been any communication with anyone from the governor's office at this point?
No, the doors are shut. They refuse to speak to us. It's very limited with the High School Athletic Association. Our understanding is from the High School Athletic Association, they are firm on the Executive Order 160. And again, it's like, where is the end game? Where is good enough? It seems that the finish line keeps being moved. You know, when we first started into this, we wanted to see the curve flatten. The curve's flattened. The curve is downward spiral. Sure, it's going to spike up again come the winter months. We know that, as is influenza is going to come into the play. But again, we have to be smart. We have to distance ourselves from those who are health compromised. Otherwise, healthy young adults, get out and live your lives.
Mark Hall with us on the Oakland County Megacast. Just another minute before we let you go. Anything you want the listeners and the viewers to know before you say goodbye?
Contact your state legislature, contact the governor's office, join our group, be heard if you agree with us. Like I said, this isn't about being a Republican. This isn't about being a Democrat. This is about dreams, memories of these young men and women that are being crushed, taken away, that will never be regained. Senior years, we're talking homecoming, prom, the first day of school, winning the league championship, all of these things that I have friends that I participated with in high school, as I know everybody out there does, that participated in sports and band and cheerleading, and that you have these friends today. And these are things that are being taken away from these young men and women that will never be recouped. And I just don't believe the risk is that great to these people that we can't overcome it and put safety precautions in place. Please reach out to your state legislatures and the governor's office and encourage them to reconsider this.
Mark Hall with us on the Oakland County Megacast. Thank you so much for taking time to speak with us and share your message. We wish you the best of luck. Stay safe, stay healthy. And again, thank you for being with us on the Oakland County Megacast.
Ronnie, thank you very much for allowing me to present the case for the kids. Thank you so much.
He's frustrated. A lot of parents, you can feel their frustration, as well as with the students as they continue to navigate this. Tyler, you're a sports person. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I see where he's coming from, and I'm personally am in the camp of I don't believe that it is entirely safe for football athletes in particular, for high contact, close proximity sports such as football, to be played while we're going through this pandemic. However, I do see the merits in the arguments that are being made that you can take extra precautions. You can really emphasize that, if we're gonna play these sports, you have to be extra careful. You cannot be hanging out with your friends as often. You cannot be ignoring social distancing measures, and you have to be wearing your masks strictly. And if you don't, then the consequence is going to be you're going to lose your football season. You're going to lose your ability to play football at the very least, or at the worst, that someone could die. So I see the arguments that are being made by this group. However, I do disagree. I don't think that it is something that is safe to be doing at this time, or responsible to be doing at this time, because you can't put them in a bubble system. You can't isolate them from everybody else, short of every single football player being at home unless they're on the football field, which is not entirely plausible. Plus, you have their families that are going out and are interacting with other people as well. So I have a lot of questions about that point of view. However, I do understand where they're coming from, and I do see a lot of merits in what they're arguing.
So it is expected that Governor Whitmer is going to address the issue of reopening gyms,
yes,
movie theaters, and other businesses that are currently closed down this week. We expect sometime this week she may address that issue, although last week she did come out and say she wasn't going to be bullied into reopening these businesses. But it will be interesting to see if she does indeed lift those restrictions, if she's going to talk about this issue with the high school sports, because it is so passionate for so many of these players. And like Mark did mention, you did have travel baseball this summer, and it seemed that there were no issues that came out of that.
Yeah, those kids also were not going to school. They were not going to school in person. They were most likely limiting their interactions, but all the safety precautions that were put in place by those baseball teams, all the safety precautions that have been put in place by these football teams and other high school athletic teams have been fairly strict, especially when they're in practice environments. So there are precautions that can be taken. Whether or not it's right to do that at this point in time where we're at with this COVID-19 pandemic, it's not for me to say. I'm not a medical expert.
You know, one of the great things about the Oakland County Megacast is we strive to bring you these interviews so that you can hear the thoughts on their side and why they are pushing for such a thing. And of course, we always welcome the governor or anyone from her team to come on and speak with us at length as well. But our goal here is to educate you, the viewers and the listeners, on some of the issues that are going on as we continue to navigate this pandemic. Because again, even though we're nearly 6 months into it, it continues to change each and every day. And so our job here is to try to keep you informed. But with that, we are going to take a quick break. And then when we come back, we are going to head over to Oakland University. You're listening to and watching the Oakland County Megacast.
Michigan, we still need to stay careful because we don't want to go backwards, back to where we started. So keep standing 6 feet apart, keep wearing a mask in public, and if you have symptoms, talk to a healthcare provider about getting tested. To move forward, let's all do our part. So stay careful. Michigan.gov/coronavirus. Michigan, we're calling on you to save lives. Don't ignore it. Don't let it go to voicemail. It's urgent. In fact, it's critical. Because if you've been in close contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19, you may have been exposed to the virus. And you could get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department. So please answer the call to learn how to protect yourself, your family, and friends. We're calling on you to stop the spread of COVID-19, to make it safe to reopen businesses and help Michigan move forward. So if you get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department, you may have been exposed to someone with COVID-19. To protect us all, answer the call. Learn more at michigan.gov/containcovid. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jonae Khaldun. I'm the Chief Medical Executive for the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. The people who are at highest risk of getting severely ill from COVID-19 are the elderly and those with chronic medical conditions. That includes people with heart disease, diabetes, COPD, or those who have compromised immune systems. People who are in those categories should right now be staying at home as much as possible and not going out if it is not essential. If you fit into one of those categories, those are the things you should do. And if you have a family member who fits into one of those categories, you should be checking in on them and making sure they are following those guidelines. There's something everyone can do to protect the community from COVID-19.
This is the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl alongside Tyler Keith. You can listen to us and watch us on Civic Center TV.com, Birmingham Area Municipal Access. Listen to us on the radio, 89.3 Lakes FM and 88.1 FM The Biff. And a big shout out and thank you to the Greater West Bloomfield Chamber of Commerce for being our Facebook partner of the day, where they are live streaming us on their Facebook page, which, you know what, Tyler, that basically means that you could live anywhere.
Good.
And you can catch up with all things Oakland County and the state of Michigan and the coronavirus and how it continues to impact our life. I believe last week someone on my Facebook page, they were in Tennessee and they were watching us.
We're countrywide, we're worldwide, Ronnie.
Well, a lot of people move away, but they're still very concerned because they're very connected to people here in Oakland County. And so what we are doing is getting that message out, trying to educate the public in all things COVID-19 related. One thing is I was trying to find some information about our faith during this time, because I think for a lot of people, their faith gets tested in a moment of crisis. But one study has said that about 24% of adults say their faith has actually become stronger because of the pandemic. So we want to go ahead right now, bring in Dr. Randall Engle. He's the professor of religious studies at Oakland University. Thank you so much for taking time out of your Monday to be with us here on the Oakland County Megacast.
I'm pleased to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
So first we should start off with the students are going to be heading back to college. How has this been for you as a professor to try to teach during this time?
Yeah. Well, I would probably join the ranks of so many others have said every day it's a new scenario. The plan right now for my students is that I'm going to see them once a week, safely distanced and masked, and then everything else I'll be doing online. So I've spent the COVID isolation videotaping little micro lectures and working on lecture outlines and hands out and all that kind of stuff.
Technology has become so important during the pandemic, even for churches. They're having to stream a lot of their services. Do you think that's going to have a lasting impact on how we do reach out to our religious leaders?
I really do. And many churches, not unlike my own, in that regard, had to go to 0 to 100 in about 2 weeks. I remember going shopping with my tech people here at my own church, and the shelves were empty of video cameras to live stream, just because everybody was doing the same thing. But as a nuisance as that was, it's really, really been a blessing. And it has really expanded so many people's ministry reach in ways they never imagined, and wouldn't have happened had it not been for this occasion. So it's kind of the cliche, every cloud has a silver lining thing. I know in my own church, apart from OU, but here at my own church, our ministry has reached out in ways we never imagined. Every Sunday now we have people streaming in through about 3 different time zones, about 4 different states, and even some of my relatives sometimes in the Netherlands.
Dr. Randall Engle with us. He's a professor of religious studies at Oakland University with us on the Oakland County Megacast. So we talk about technology and how it's been incorporated into the churches during the pandemic in an abundance of caution to keep people out of the facilities and away from each other so they're not spreading the virus. But it's also brought up some issues as well with certain rites of passages and ceremonies such as baptisms and confessions and marriages, where some have been even deemed invalid after the fact because they were done over technology. Where is that disconnect? Because these are such formal ceremonies, why does technology invalidate them?
Yeah, and again, you'd have to be very careful in labeling, for example, all Christianity, and I'm not sure if you did that. It would be different for each faith, tradition, or denomination. Right. So for the Roman Catholic Church, for example, it's interesting there because they've always had Mass on television. Particularly, I remember for people, for example, in nursing homes. And so in that scenario, it is okay to participate in Mass by observation. But now with COVID, some Roman Catholic parishes have said it's okay to participate by observation. And other parishes have said, no, you need tactilely to have the elements of host and wine. Other parishes have said, no, we're just going to have a, quote, dry Mass, just the host. So you see different priests, different dioceses approaching this all in different ways. And that's just the Roman Catholic Church. Protestants are all over the map.
One of the things that we've seen throughout the crisis, some of the church services that have been done over Zoom have been basically hijacked and hacked. Have you had any of those situations with any of your services?
No, and that's the first I've heard of it, and I hope you haven't jinxed it.
Well, I hope so. I hope I haven't as well. So real quickly, talk a little bit about the importance of the interactions that you do have with some of your students. Do they need that one-on-one, face-to-face time, or is the newer generation better able to and better equipped to handle things virtually?
You know, I'm going to speak out of both sides of my mouth. On the one side, this generation more than ever has grown up intuitively using technology, right? You can give a kindergartner an iPad and they can just somehow figure it out in ways that we just did not grow up with, speaking for myself. So yes, now I'm addressing students in the classroom who have grown up with technology and they are masters of it, and I need to many times ask them of how I can most be effective using technology. That's on the one side of my mouth. On the other side of the mouth, technology has become so common and so taken for granted that students love in-person classes because it's off the norm. We can have this dialogue in real time, in real people. They can ask questions, we can debate, I can ask back. There's no of the wondering, how do I take the tone of this text? You know, because we're talking and we can see facial expressions and so forth. And I have students who do eye rolling when you say, we're going to have yet another Zoom meeting. They're fatigued, they're tired of it. So again, we're all over the map. Yes, we have technology, it's amazing, it's wonderful. Is it the be all end all for all times in education? Absolutely not, and I hope not. I think there will always be a place for in-person dialogue and didactic teaching in a classroom for ways that cannot be replicated in technological means.
So Dr. Engle, I want to switch pace here for just a little bit. I'd like to get your thoughts on the story that came out about the Dearborn Catholic priest.
Yeah.
He found out his baptism was invalid, was just home going through old VHS movies and discovered that. Talk a little bit about that and what the impact it has.
Well, and again, full disclosure, I'm not a Roman Catholic. I'm a professor of religious studies. So I'm not a priest, but I do know enough about the Roman Catholic Church to say that the Roman Catholic Church, as we all know, has 7 mysteries or 7 sacraments. Those are all tactile ways that the church teaches that God's grace becomes present. So you think of Mass and anointing with oil and baptism with water and so forth. And mysteries then are done by Christ to his people through a priest, the mediator, right? So in those sacramental moments, the Roman Catholic Church is scrupulous about the formulations that must be used, because it's not about the person doing it. They are just a conduit. So in Matt Hood's case, what had happened is, as I understand it, he was baptized by a deacon, and which is fine. But the deacon, again, as I read the story, felt arrogant to say, I baptize you, when he was in an assembly of people. So he changed the pronoun I to we baptize you. At the moment, some people might have thought the we was the assembly. Other people might have thought the we was the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. But the word he was supposed to use is I, meaning Christ, as a conduit through the deacon. That didn't happen. Therefore, the church has judged that baptism was invalid. And then if you follow the dominoes as they fall, then you have somebody who took his vows inappropriately because he wasn't baptized, took his priestly vows, and so forth. And so everything he did then was not done by a priest that was properly validated by the church. So that's where we are today. And he just discovered this, like you said, 30 years in.
Such a fascinating story, and you wonder about the people that he did marry. Are their marriages legal, and what's going to happen there?
And baptisms. As I understand it, and again, I could be wrong, he has contacted, and the church has many of those people, and so the baptisms have been redone in the marriage. The issue will come then with last rites. I don't know how you would redo that. And so I know the bishops and the cardinals are being involved to see if there isn't some way forward. And I certainly hope that not just for fatherhood, but for also all those parishioners.
Dr. Randall Engle with us. He is a professor of religious studies at Oakland University with us on the Oakland County Megacast. And Dr. Engle, a lot of people that do study religious studies are heavily religious themselves and are interested in going into religious studies to better study their faith or to go into working within their faith, but others that study maybe as an elective or go into religious or look into religious studies out of pure interest and curiosity maybe aren't as religious. Over the course of the pandemic, have you seen, either with talking with your students or conversations you have with people in the public, that people have become stronger in their faith or have reconnected with their faith if they have had lost touch with it over the years?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. And that's not just this pandemic. If you would look at history, surprisingly, the date where all faiths peaked in attendance and adherence was after World War II. And that wasn't just because of the war babies. And you would think that after a war, people like World War II, people would be walking away, running away from all faith, saying there cannot be a God in any shape, form. But yet, people ran to their faith. And I see the same phenom happening here with COVID. People have learned that we weren't created to live in isolation. Haven't we all figured that out? People will use different words, but they'll say, something's off. I'm not being fulfilled. Depression. There's something missing. And part of that is that pretty much all faiths will teach, because we were made to be in communion with each other and with the Great One. And without that, something was missing. So people naturally went back to their faiths to find it however they could and to participate in it however they could. In terms of the students studying at Oakland University, I'm pleased to report, I don't think it's me, I think it's the subject, my classes have all filled. When, as we all know, fallen Roman has fallen. I feel very good about that. I'm pleased about that. It's not me. I think it's the subject matter.
And speaking of the subject matter, how do you encourage your students or just people in general to reach out and try to expand their knowledge on not just their faiths, but other faiths as well?
I remind my students that this is simply, on one level, an issue of good manners. We live in a small global world now, and you, student, are going to go to work or a Zoom meeting with people across the world, and it's only good manners to know so that you can respect. If somebody might say, for example, I can't have a meeting that day because it's Ramadan. Well, now you know what Ramadan is. It's just good manners of respecting and knowing your neighbor. So it's just competency, religious literacy, if you will. 50 years ago, you could assume a homogeneous community wherever you would move. Whatever religion, today, it's all intermixed. So on one level, we simply do the work of understanding, what does this faith tradition believe versus this one, versus this one. What are the terms, practices I would need to know about each one?
We have so many times right now, people are afraid to ask questions. How can they do so and come across as curious and sincere and not rude and ignorant to the person that they are speaking to?
Wow, you ask great questions. I wish you were one of my students. One of the first things we do, and we'll do this a week from Wednesday in my classroom, is that's the elephant in the room we talk about right up front. After I tell them the usual, that this is a public university, so we don't teach religion in that you must convert in order to get an A in the class. Not at all. After we do that, we talk about that very fact, that there is no dumb question. And by the way, if you're thinking something of a question, studies have shown some amazingly high statistic that like 80% of the other students at the same time are thinking the very same question but don't dare to ask it. So I just give permission, and it's an open classroom. And then I kind of model myself, asking them dumb questions that they laugh at and say, "You didn't know that?" And I say, "No, I didn't know that either." So giving permission to explore, to ask. There is no such thing in my classroom as a dumb question.
Dr. Randall Engle with us, Professor of Religious Studies at Oakland University. Just another couple minutes with you, Dr. Engle, before we let you go today. Is there anything else that you'd like to discuss or any other information that would be important for our audience to know?
No, except that a reminder for all of us, irregardless of our faith, you can be a change, and you can bring that hope to anybody. Maybe even you don't have a faith. Thank the guy who just toweled off your car at the car wash. Thank the cashier who showed up and is sitting there all day, standing all day behind plexiglass in a mask and helped you check out your groceries. Take the time to thank and validate people. Let them know that whatever their role is, they're an important part of your community. That validation is so powerful, and we can all do it.
Real quickly before we let you go, I'm on Oakland University's website, and it mentions the Center for Religious Understanding. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's the department in which I teach. We have faculty members representative of major religions. We're pretty much all generalists. You have to be these days. But my particular focus then is I'm the guy at the table who I do all the Christianity courses and religion in the modern world. But we also have courses in Buddhism, Islam, the Judaic studies are very big. And then in addition to that, I also teach at the Honors College at the OU, where many times I will pitch courses in some religious angle. One of the fun ones, by the way, that I've done was called Sacred Spaces, because I know that this broadcast is going to Oakland County. We have an embarrassing riches of amazing architectural feats built by all the major religions. So I got my students on a bus, and every Thursday afternoon we would talk about a faith tradition and then go visit a local place where the faith was present in stone and brick. And that was a really great experience, and it's a great reminder to all of us in Oakland County, the architectural jewels we have 10 minutes from Oakland University in all directions.
Well, Professor, thank you so much. Dr. Randall Engle, Professor of Religious Studies at Oakland University. Metro Detroit, definitely a melting pot for various religions as well. We thank you, and best of luck in this upcoming semester.
Thank you, and you too.
I would like to take one of his classes. He seems like he'd be a really fun professor.
It does, and he does, and it seems like this is very interesting subject matter as well. You can learn something about people of many different faiths that we have in our local area, and learn something new about your neighbor, and learn to respect religion, the religions around us, whether you are a religious person, whether you follow that faith or not.
I think it's so important, especially now. If you have a question, we have so many people of various different backgrounds and different faiths. It's okay to ask those questions, but do it with the kind heart and with respect. And I think people would be welcome to having that conversation and enlightening you and educating you on their beliefs and their backgrounds, because we're all connected. I think if anything, Tyler, during this pandemic, we have definitely learned that we are all connected in one way or another, and the more we can understand and open up and speak with one another, the better off we're going to be here as a community.
Yeah, I think we've all learned that we need to be more respectful of each other and be more kind to each other. We've seen just how much a traumatic event like a pandemic can have an impact on people, and we've seen people's daily lives, people's entire lives be completely flipped upside down, changed, and heavily impacted. And so the lessons that we're learning over the pandemic, such as what we've spoken with Dr. Engle today, hopefully will stick.
So to Dr. Engle and all of our guests, we appreciate you being here with us on the Oakland County Megacast. Troy Chamber of Commerce, always a great conversation with them as we learn about how the businesses are reopening in the city of Troy. Jonathon Jackson doing great things up in Saginaw. And also we want to say thank you to Mark Hall for coming on the Oakland County Megacast with us. He was a last minute call and we appreciate that interview as well. I'm Ronnie Dahl alongside Tyler Keith, and for the entire team here at Civic Center TV, we say thank you and have a happy day.